With wet and dry before I get onto the water stones. There's a lot of wet and dry in there. We'll just get the water stones into water so they can be soaking up. And I can pass these around, you can all have a go on these, I'm not precious about them or anything. But yeah, we've got, that one's an 800 grit, which is probably the coarsest grit of a water stone. But if you start at 800 grit with a big nick in a blade, you're going to be there for hours, backwards and forwards, just trying to wear the metal down until you've got the bevel in a nice straight line again, before you even really get to the sharpening bit. So what I tend to do is start at about 180 grit on wet and dry, and just strip it back until the bevel's nice and level. Then you've got a nice easy medium to start on the higher grit stones, to start sharpening it. If you start with, I mean, there's an 800, a 1200. This set came, I think it was with, an 800, and then they expect you to skip to 6,000, which is a bit of a leap. And to wear out, if you want to go for the mirror finish, the little striations that an 800 grit will leave are really quite deep, and to go up to 6,000 from that, again, you're going to be there all day rubbing it backwards and forwards, trying to take all the lines out for that nice smooth finish. So like I say, I start on wet and dry for a really chipped blade. Get through God knows how much wet and dry, but I've got here from, I don't know what I bought them yet. Oh, 240 was the roughest I've got here. 200, 400, 600, I've got 800, 1200, 1500, and if you really want to be really anal about it, you can move on to micro mesh afterwards, which goes really high. This is 12,000 grit micro mesh. This is what the RAF use for polishing scratches out of jet fighter windshields. So you can get a really refined edge on it, but it's not very necessary really. I mean, if I was doing one knife every now and again like I used to, I'd probably still do that, because it's quite therapeutic sometimes, a bit of music on or something on the telly, and just zone out and sharpen away. But when you're doing umpteen a week, it gets a bit dull, so I'm looking for all the shortcuts to sort of speed the process up, if you know what I mean. So we do start down quite coarse, but I'll get these in to soak. The water stones first. Have we got some water up here?
In the kettle.
There's a water.
I tell you what,
there's a water carrier there.
Is there any to pee?
Behind that top.
That'll do. I'll tell you what, I might as well save decent water for that, and we'll use this for these. So they take a bit of soaking. Got to this one. Yeah, it might be a little bit quicker. The other way. I think that's got to go right round on it.
Falling out of the tap now.
Lovely that, dude. Cheers. Thanks, mate. Right, we'll leave them to soak. The water stones have to sit in a tray of water until they stop bubbling. It means the stone's full of water then. And there's a little stand here with feet on that it goes on. But we'll get to that. So to start, a bit of 240 grit on that one. I'll demonstrate on this one, and then you lot can all sort of pass the stuff round and have a play with it if you like. So a bit of 240. And all I do with the wet and dry, I've just got little bits of plyboard, and I just glue the wet and dry onto it. Yeah, that one's dead. Just pull the paper off. It's going to come off in bits just to be awkward today. It normally comes off as a sheet.
No, honestly, it does.
Tell you what, that can stay on there. We use the other side. Yes, get yourself a strip of wet and dry about the same size as the board. Like that. blunt knife that you're about to sharpen to just trim that off. And then all I do with it, you can use double-sided tape or anything like that, but if you're doing a lot of it, I think spray mount's easier. And just do this downwind of yourself. I did this in the garden with the wind coming into my face a few weeks ago, and I managed to glue my eyelashes to my cheek and had to peel them apart in the bathroom, which wasn't my greatest moment, and it stings as well. So yeah, just a bit of that on there, stick it on the board, position it up to the edge like that, and then just put it face down. Put it face down like that, give it a couple of minutes and that will stick. Right, so we'll do the next one as well. Do you know what, I'm going to put another bit of 240 on another board because that's going to take a bit of work on that. Nearly one sheet.
Do you find it's better to get the board the width of sort of your length of the blade fits on the board, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've just gone for what Mors Kochanski's size says in his book, really. But you know, you can go bigger. If I'm doing a bigger knife, I'll use the whole sheet on a cutting mat on the table at home, you know. But the sort of Mora size, Woodlaw size, that kind of thing, that's absolutely fine. But there's all sorts of other little things you can use, like all the fancy emery boards with the different grits on that your wife at home might use for her nails. You could thoroughly amuse her by stealing them all and filling them up with metal filings. They seem to enjoy that. Stick that on there as well.
So how do you ask her for that? Is that when she's trying to take the knife out your back with your
Who mentioned
back
asking?
stuff for it?
Wait for her to go out and then you reappropriate. Right, well, I might as well stand behind here and do it then, mightn't I, suppose? Makes sense. Yeah, so all I will do with that, just repeatedly until it's gone, basically just put your knife on like that, and then you want to tip it up onto its bevel. So you're at exactly the angle of the bevel, basically. Now you would be doing this on a flat table, just to make it a bit more stable. It's not that easy learning doing it upright, but I'll do it upright so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, hold your board, and then you're literally just sweeping your knife across the board like that, nice and evenly, backwards and forwards. You can do one stroke each side or go 10 strokes a side. And another thing you can do while you're learning this, a good idea is to get a black marker pen, colour your whole bevel in black, and then you can see where your contact points are on the wet and dry, and you can see what's working for you and what isn't. Because I found when I first started doing this, when I first became aware of Scandi grind knives, I started learning this. There wasn't YouTube then, there was just a few books about, and I had a little look and thought what I was doing was sharpening a knife, and I sort of ground it right down at the back here like that, almost put a recurve in it, where I was, you know, just doing it wrong, basically. I was achieving a sharp edge, but destroying the angles of the bevel, which when you do it, it just makes it really hard to maintain it. If you're in the field and you're using lots of these little pocket hones where you're just putting a secondary bevel on, they're all really good while you're using them, but eventually it will lose its shape here. So when you go to do something like a nice even cut that requires that bit to be flat with no daylight through it, you'll find you're actually making a sort of a humpy kind of cut because of the waves in the blade. But again, it depends how far you want to go with with your carving, I mean, people really want their knives shaving sharp, which is great for carving, but for things like battening and more sort of impact stuff, you don't need that much of an edge on the knife, really. It doesn't need to go quite that far, but yeah, that's all you do. I'm just effectively stroking that backwards and forwards like that. I don't recommend doing it this way to start, because obviously my thumb is right in the arc of the cutting edge, and it's a little bit more dangerous than really it needs to be. But this is so you can just see what I'm doing. Bit of dirt on there that's not coming off. And you can give special attention to certain bits of the bevel that possibly aren't making contact, like that. And you can see that's coming up quite clean now. And just from those few strokes, that was a fair sized ding in there. That's removed probably about half of it already, just from doing that. Which, you know, I mean, you'd still achieve that on the 800 grit Waterstone. That would just probably, I don't know, take half an hour or something rather than a matter of minutes. So it's, again, it's how much time you want to spend doing it, how many knives you've got to do, and whether you enjoy it. You know, I've got mates that will go through their knife collection and use every one to blunt so that they can sit there with a tray on their lap with some rubbish on the telly and just zone out and sharpen away. People find it quite therapeutic, I think. And I can see how it can be. But when you do a few a week, it does start to lose its attraction. Eventually you will wear off pretty much the coarse grit on the one side of the stone, so you'll either want to change the paper. I mean, I'll get as much out of this piece as I can by using the other side as well.
Do you always use it dry?
I always use it. But that thing is almost out of that blade now. If you were to use these at home, you can, what a lot of people do is take an old bicycle inner tube and glue a couple of strips on the bottom. Then it's quite grippy on whatever surface you put it on as well. Obviously the other advantage of this is it costs peanuts to make, you know, a bit of ply. Most people have got a bit of ply laying about, or a bit of hardboard or something. Tin of that, or a bit of sellotape, and some packs of wet and dry. It costs pence to make. Whereas the Waterstones, they're old now, but I think I paid 50-60 quid for them. I think they're up to about 80-90 quid now for a set of them. You know, which if you've just got a Mora and you go out once a month or something, it's probably not worth you spending the money on those, really. It's a ludicrous expense for just one little knife. So I'd probably stick to the wet and dry for that. And then you've got all sorts of other gadgets on the market where you can clamp the knife up and measure the angle of the bevel and put kind of ceramic rods across it to put your bevel on, all with guides at angles. But I don't think it's great, and it makes a sharp knife, but it doesn't teach you anything about the process. It's a machine that's kind of doing it for you. Whereas I think if you've actually just got the bare minimum of stuff and you can kind of build up some muscle memory doing it, it's a safer thing. You don't have to think about what you're doing so much. Your hands will just do it. And as you go, you can just gently rub your thumbnail along the bevel and you'll feel where every little dent is. So we've still got the one we can see, but there's a little bit missing up the front there as well. So we'll just soldier on there for a little bit longer. Sorry, are you getting this on there?
Yeah, yeah. Do you just buy any old wet and dry, or do you get like a particular quality? Or
to be fair, it blunts so much. It blunts so quick. I'd just buy the cheapest stuff.
just a screw fix?
Yeah,
something like that.
Halford's in a pinch, but they're dear. You get sort of 3 or 4 sheets in a pack. But if you go into, I think it was either Screwfix or Tool Station, I got that from.
The stuff I've seen one in there that's got the Titan logo on it.
Yeah,
That's Screwfix.
That's Screwfix,
yeah.
is it? Right. Okay. Yeah, Screwfix then. Good old Screwfix. There, that's getting a lot better now. Still going to need a bit more on there though. So I'll move on to the other sheet. And that should then have removed all the chips out of it. Then we can then start to move on to the next grip. And that's nearly there. But yeah, so that sort of takes a lot of the struggle out of it. I saw a sharpener the other day actually, which I haven't quite made my mind up on whether it's a gimmick or a good one. It's Ken Onion, the guy who designs knives for Gerber, and it's basically a little miniature upright belt sander. And you clamp your knife in and offer it up to the belt and away it takes some of the bevel, but I haven't quite decided whether you just touch your knife on there and all of a sudden you've gone from a knife to a metal toothpick and it's eaten the blade, or if it's actually going to work, if you know what I mean. I'd like to try one.
Assuming you'd have to be careful not to overeat your blade as well with that.
Well, exactly, yeah. And they're the thick end of about 120 quid as well, so it's not a cheap thing.
The workshop do one like that.
I think there is a cheaper one, yeah, I think. So I'm not too up on that sort of stuff, to be honest. Almost everything I do, I prefer doing it by hand anyway, because you've got a lot more control.
I'm just going to get some wood to get that smoke down on the flame. With that
And you
red
feel
light
better
goes
at
off,
the end of it,
you just press that
by
button.
hand.
So it's a little red light
You can
in the corner.
justify that
It'll
cold
probably
beer
say
out the
something like
fridge,
movie
because
stop
you're
recording
cheap
or
or
something.
something,
And then you just have to press that.
Is that 80 grand to start off with? Did you say? Is that
This is 240. To be honest, I would have started a lot, if I had coarser stuff with me, I would have started on that, probably about 180. You can get 60 grit on wet and dry, but the aluminium particles on it are so big, you end up almost making more sort of jagged bits than less, if you know what I mean.
Flames it, get that smoke down.
Nearly there. A little bit more on this one.
Yeah, you could do a bit of smoke, yeah.
This possibly would have gone another sheet just for speed, but we're nearly there now. Still some smoky spots now.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some flames up, get rid of the smoke. Such internal grimy knees, that.
On there, son.
Tiny still there. Nearly there. You have to get the whole thing out, because if you leave just a little bit of it, it will just get bigger as time goes on. Then and if you leave them, it ends up as a weak point where your blade can snap if you're going to plonk it through a bit of bone or batten a nutty old piece of pine or something like that. Keep an eye on the knife as you go, just to make sure you kept the bevel straight. If you can see any daylight underneath it, then obviously you're getting a little wiggle on it. But yeah, I think that thing that's largely gone now. So that's the 180 grit. I would just keep moving up grits until I got nearer to 800 to go on the Waterstone for that. So I will now go up another grit to whatever I've got next, which I think is about 320. That should go in the fire in a minute. I've bought some other bits and pieces as well. I've got some of the Spyderco ceramic rods here we can have a play with later as well. 320. Move on to the next blunt knife to cut this. Yeah, that stick for a minute. Must admit, I didn't realise there'd be as many of you doing this, otherwise I'd have bought a lot more of these little bits of ply. So you're going to have to share these in a bit when we get to passing them around and stuff. But yeah, same again on the 340 grit. And what I try and do now, as I do this, is get all the scratches in on the blade from the sharpening in a uniform direction. And then it just makes it a lot easier to clean the thing up and make it look nice afterwards. That's actually starting to get a bit sharp again now from completely blunt, so we know it's going the right way. You get quicker as you go, as your hand gets used to starting to take a bit of the shine on there, and we're only up to 320 grit, and that's taken what, about 15 minutes. So you'd have been banging away at that for hours on the Waterstone. But yeah, I'll go up another grit on that. That was 400 we skipped to there, was it? Yeah, 400. Just do a bit of 600. mean, in effect, once that's worn down, that's really worn there now. That is probably about a couple of thousand grit that's worn down to. So if you wanted to, you could even save this stuff later on to bring the shine back onto the blade if you wanted. The belts on the belt sander in the workshop, once they get worn, I keep all of them and I use them for really fine stuff like running down the welt on a piece of leatherwork and things like that, because it's a nice fine grip. That's still stuck from the sticky last time, so we'll just carry on with that for a minute. Yeah, that's getting there now. We'll just go up the other side on that, and then we can start to think about the water stones.
How can I do that on the best fight? Yeah. It was best of those molds. You're in the black tie up now, yeah?
So there we go.
Did somebody put a dirty Greek neck in that?
Huh?
Somebody put a dirty Greek neck in that?
Yeah, I don't know who did it. I thought they were trying to make a saw.
Sorry?
I thought they were trying to make a saw.
Muntjack shoulder joint and slap.
There's no dinging it now, look.
Don't look like a
That's
Laplander
just
anymore.
up to 600 grip.
I thought you said that's after 600 strokes.
No, that's about 15 minutes, mate. It's not that much, actually. So that's up to 600 grit on the wet and dry. That's now ready to go on the water stone. Like I said earlier, you could have done that on the water stones, but you end up banging away on your water stones. And I chatted with another knife maker on Kevin's thing a few weeks ago. Is it Will something?
Yeah. Will Adams.
Will Adams, that's it. And he was surprised my water stones don't bow in the middle, because his have all bowed in the middle because of excessive use. And the reason mine haven't all bowed in the middle is because I do the rough work on the wet and dry first, because they're 50 quid, you know, 60 quid, and this is pence for sheets. So, you know, whilst technically that's probably the best way, it's slightly kinder to the knife, less abrasive than this and all the rest of it. It just takes for bloody ever and it's expensive. So
Still only fetching off the same amount of steel, aren't you?
exactly.
Just getting it done quicker.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not going to get rid of the nick and then carry on going, are you? You're going
No, exactly.
to stop.
Exactly. So these are probably ready to go now. So we'll have the 8. I tell you what, before I do this, I'm just going to really unprofessionally roll a cigarette. Before I end up with wet hands. Right, so onto the wet stones. They're Japanese wet stones. It's a synthetic stone. It's not a natural thing. I'm not sure what these are made of. I know the ones Spyderco use are industrial sapphires forced together in some way, but I'm not sure what these are made of. This is the 800 grit one. It comes with a little rubberized stand to clamp the thing into like that. You keep the other block in the middle obviously for support, and then just screw these up. Nice cold day for cold wet fingers. So there's your stone, and then you've also got another little stone that comes with it, which is called a Nagura stone, which is really like a a sort of a talc kind of thing, and you just wet that in your water and you just give yourself a little rub up and down on your stone, and that basically lubricates the surface. It stops all the metal dust blocking the pores on the stone. I don't want to get the handle all wet, so I'll just wipe the handle. Yeah, then same again basically. Blade on, tip it up, and you're just working forward off there like that. And you do a few strokes back, and you'll start to see metallic stripes appear on the stone, and you will also start to see the slurry on top of the stone take a slightly dirty sort of appearance where it's filling with metal filings. What you can do is get a finger full of that and actually use that for cleaning the rest of the knife. It's a very, very soft abrasive paste, and just, you know, if you've got that sort of slightly brushed grainy finish on your knife, that will clear out any last bits of sap or blood or anything you don't really want in the stone. Oh, I've got water here, haven't I? And yeah, your stone will dry out a little bit, so you do have to keep just adding a little bit more. And then yeah, just back to it for as many strokes as you think it takes. The only problem I find with the water stones is when it's dry and I'm working on the wet and dry, I can feel the bevel with my fingers, and I've got some idea how sharp it is. Whereas once the bevel's all wet, my skin's gone that kind of spongy, you've been in the bath too long kind of texture. You can't really feel how sharp it is. So it's not quite as easy a medium as that for when you're beginning, if you know what I mean. But it all comes with experience. Just, you know, practice like anything. Practice and you'll get better, and you'll get more of an eye for what it is you're doing. What I'm going to do with this knife, once I've got that Scandi edge nice and sharp, is I'm going to put a secondary bevel on that Scandi edge on this, because it's Davey's knife, and Davey being Davey, the thing he does most is butcher animals, deer, rabbit, all of that sort of thing, and a little secondary bevel on the end of the Scandi will just strengthen it just a tiny bit. Which may help it stop it, you know, if it's a big bone, and it's, you know, it's still going to happen, but it will stop the smaller bones doing it. If it's a carving knife, I'll keep that as a bare Scandi grind, because it's just kind of to the wood. You get a nice cleaner cut, a smoother shaving, and a slightly cleaner end result. Once you get down to that sort of tooled finish type of stuff on spoons and cookses and all the rest of it. There. I'll just give that a little wipe off and have a look at it and see how I'm getting on. So from that I can look at that edge now, and I can see where I'm starting to lose all the lines from the wet and dry, and finer lines are starting to take over. So you can actually see where the blade's cleaning up and where the blade isn't cleaning up, if you see what I mean. So there's possibly a couple of spots here, like where I've had my fingers there, that's getting a little bit more pressure than further up here. So I'll do it again, and I'll just adjust my grip as I go. So that stone needs wetting again. There's obviously no limit to how long you do this, you just kind of keep going till it's done, as it were. Not the most exciting demo to watch. But it is quite an important one. And obviously a blunt knife, as we all know, is a good deal more dangerous than a sharp knife because of the extra force you put behind it, so you've got less control. Is that my dog being good?
Dog.
Just enjoying the woods. That will probably do on 800 grit. Like I say, we would be there a hell of a lot longer had we not done what we've done on the wet and dry first of all. So we'll take that stone out now and move on to the next one, which is 1200 grit. I'll put him back into soak so you guys can play with him. Getting warm now. Nagura stone again, lube up the surface, not big as sheath though, and then we start again. Have a little look at that now. That's really getting there already. But that's not quite ready to take much hair off yet. A little bit, not much. Keep going. Just a little bit down there. Bit of cigarette ash on there as well for good measure. Pick that up in a minute. keep meaning to buy some of that lap oil that you get to put on your stones, which is another sort of surface lubricant, but it stops the pores in the stone getting blocked up with the metal. I think people put it on strops as well. I'll have to look into that. But it must work because quite a few people are doing it of late. It must be a new thing.
Smurf proof for me all the way.
Yeah, I'm still on Jeweller's Rouge for stropping. I quite like that. But to be honest, I don't really use a leather strop anymore. I use buffing wheels in the workshop now.
Yeah.
Because you lose another hour there, you know.
I put the Jeweller's Rouge on the strops what I'm using for my leather tools. It's like the
right.
bevelers and that.
Yeah.
I use that takes that off nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to work out how to sharpen it. I keep going through hole punches on leatherwork. You know, the rotary ones that you grip. And I got, the guy I see for my leather, he sold off one, he's like in his late 60s, so a lot of his contemporaries are obviously dying off what they do at that age, and he's selling off a lot of old friends' leather gear, and I got an army issue set of hole punches from 1885.
Jesus.
And they are bomb proof, they're fantastic. You know, they've been going that long and they still work. But each little thing that punches a hole, you have to screw a new one in for the different sizes, and some of them need sharpening, but it's a perfect circle with a bevel on. And I don't know how you sharpen that without getting it out of kilter. I can do the curved bit on a crook knife, so I'd imagine it's a similar process, but you know, carving I don't know if you sharpen the outside or the inside, and some of them are like sort of 4mm across, so to carve a dowel with a bit of wet and dry, that's not going to work. So I don't quite know how you sharpen them. I've got to work it out.
My crook knives are hit and miss. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't.
Right. To be honest, I tend to put them on the buffing wheel as well before they go blunt now, and save the job, because sharpening crook knives, no matter how experienced you are, it's still not an easy job. It's not desperately difficult, but you've just got to absolutely watch everything you're doing. It's really easy to put a corner on it instead of keeping it nice and round. And then once you put a corner on it, you've got the devil's own job of getting that out. And
so that's the next live demo for the chat, is it?
Thank you.
It's something that people want to see though, that's the problem, as tricky as it is. It's a pain in the butt.
I'll help you find some.
Although I'm sure I've seen some dedicated tools for it now.
Do you know, there probably are. There's a market for it, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, so bushcraft's quite a big business now. In the days before YouTube, there was a handful of books, and you kind of guessed and made it up and made your own stuff, you know. But now there's a shop selling something that does one, you know, there's almost every aspect of it's catered for commercially now, I think. So there's less learning right from the off, if you know what I mean, because you can buy a product that achieves what you want to do without you having to work out how to do it and then fabricate the thing to do it yourself. Says me, the leather worker and knife maker. But right, that's getting to a pretty good state now. All I'm going to do now is just keep banging away on that stone for a bit and then move on to that other stone, but the process is exactly the same as what I've seen you guys have seen me doing here. So if anyone wants to come and grab, you're going to have to take turns because I haven't got so much of it for a class this big, because normally I'll do about 6 people at once on this subject rather than, you know, a woodland full. But yeah, if you want to come and grab some wet and dry, a bit of board, start on your own knives or what have you, or if you've got anything that you're stuck on, feel free to ask me. But yeah, if you want